Okay, so picture this, right? You're finally tackling that office organization project. Maybe your side hustle is blowing up,
Mm.
or maybe you're just tired of that one junk drawer that seems to like judge you every time you walk by.
The struggle is real.
Right. So you know you need to step up your security game.
Of course.
But we're not talking like Fort Knox level security here.
Right.
Just something solid, reliable that, just works.
Makes sense.
Enter the Carbine CCL1.
Uh-huh.
This lock has been generating some buzz. And we've got our hands on two really interesting pieces of intel for this deep dive.
Okay.
We've got the official Carbine product description
Of course. Gotta have that.
and a glowing review from a guy named James in Brisbane.
Always good to see how the marketing stacks up against the real world.
Exactly. So our mission today, if you choose to accept it, is to figure out if the CCL1 is the hero lock that your office deserves.
I love it. Let's dive in.
All right. So Carbon, they don't mess around. Their description hits you right off the bat with solid construction, smooth operation.
Music to my ears.
Right. Who wants to deal with a janky lock?
Nobody. Nobody wants that.
Exactly. And then they emphasize it's ideal for moderate security.
See, and that's interesting to me because they're clearly defining their lane, right?
Yeah.
They're not trying to be everything to everyone, and I actually kind of respect that. Builds a little trust.
I agree. It's like they're upfront about it not being for your like priceless stamp collection or something.
Right.
Which honestly makes me more likely to believe them when they say solid construction.
Oh, absolutely. Transparency is key.
Yeah. Speaking of knowing their audience, they highlight that it retrofits most common brands, which I bet our man James in Brisbane really appreciated.
Oh, for sure. Think about it. How many of us are stuck with like weirdly sized cabinets from who knows when,
Oh, all the time.
the 70s or something?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to just swap out the lock is huge.
Right. No need to like become a master carpenter, just to upgrade your security a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's get into some specifics here. They mention it can be a bolt or a latch.
Okay.
Now, I'll be honest, I always get those two mixed up. What's the difference and why should I care?
Sure. So a bolt is classic, right?
Mhm.
You need the key to both lock and unlock. It's what most people picture when they think deadbolt.
Okay.
Simple, secure. But a latch, that's where things get a little more interesting.
Okay, how so?
Well, with a latch, you can just push the door shut. You don't need the key to actually lock it.
Ah.
Think about like a supply cabinet that you're accessing 100 times a day.
Right, right. That makes a lot more sense. So we've got some versatility already with the CCL1.
Absolutely.
And then they mention this whole four-way locking direction thing,
Yeah.
which sounds a little spy movie to me, but is that actually useful?
More than you might think, especially if you are a fan of, you know, slightly unusual DIY projects
Okay.
like myself.
Okay.
Basically, it just gives you options for how you install the lock.
Okay.
So say you've got a shelf that's in a bit of an awkward spot, or maybe you're trying to reuse old screw holes because you don't want to damage the
For
cabinet.
sure.
This just gives you that flexibility.
I like it. So we know this lock has, some flexibility, but what about the actual installation? This is where James from Brisbane comes in, right?
Exactly. And his review, I mean, he basically says even with his, let's call them developing DIY skills,
Right.
installation was super easy.
Which is good news for anyone who's ever spent like an entire Saturday afternoon battling those tiny little Allen wrenches.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. But that ease of installation, that actually tells us something kind of important about the design itself, right?
Absolutely. A lot of times a simpler design actually makes for a more robust and user-friendly product overall.
Interesting.
Fewer parts, fewer things to go wrong, both during installation and down the line.
Makes sense.
Carbine definitely seems to have prioritized that with the CCL1.
Yeah, like that just works approach.
Exactly.
And it's not just about the installation, right? It's got to work day in and day out.
For sure.
And I noticed Carbine mentions the smooth key action, which, I mean, that might seem like a small detail,
Yeah.
but there's nothing more frustrating than a sticky lock when you're, trying to get things done.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, honestly, I think that's the difference between, like, a good product and a truly great product. It's those small details.
Total.
The tactile, like,
Yeah.
just that feedback that elevates the whole experience.
It's like the difference between a car door that shuts with a satisfying thunk
Right.
versus one that sounds like, a bag of potatoes falling down the stairs.
Exactly.
You just know which one is built to last.
For sure.
And speaking of lasting, there's one feature I bet most people kind of overlook, the fact that you can rekey the CCL1.
Oh, that's huge. Such a good point.
Right.
Because people don't think about that up front, but in terms of long-term practicality, especially in an office, that's a game changer.
So break it down for me. Why is rekeying such a big deal?
Well, think about it. Employee leaves, you hire someone new, maybe you just want to change up access for security reasons.
Right.
With a rekeyable lock, you just change the key. You don't have to replace the entire lock.
That's really convenient.
It's cost-effective, it's sustainable, it's just smart.
Yeah, the rekeying, that's a really good point. I never would have thought about that. But it makes total sense. It's like they designed this thing to like grow with you and your needs. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's, that kind of forward thinking, that's what really sets a product apart in the long run. You're not just buying a log at that point.
Yeah.
You're investing in a whole security solution, something that can adapt as your needs change.
So who is this perfect for then? I mean, it seems like we're talking to someone who, appreciates quality, values simplicity,
For sure.
maybe even enjoys a little DIY project here and there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's for the person who, they understand that security doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing.
Right.
They're looking for that sweet spot.
Uh-huh.
Robust enough to give you peace of mind, but user-friendly enough that it doesn't feel like, a chore to use it every day.
Totally. And it's funny because the product description actually mentions this lock being a hit with parents too, which now that I think about it, oh yeah,
Makes total sense.
absolutely. I mean, parents are always trying to make their homes safer, especially with, little ones running around.
Of course.
But at the same time, you don't want to live in a museum where everything is, locked up tight.
Right, exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
Finding that balance, yeah.
And this CCL1, with the easy installation and the smooth action, it seems like it hits that sweet spot.
It really does.
So for our listeners out there who are probably already thinking about, like, every cabinet in their house,
Right.
what's the one thing you want them to remember about the CCL1?
I think the big takeaway here is that you don't have to spend a ton of money. You don't have to overcomplicate things to get really effective security.
Right. And the CCL1 is proof. Quality construction, well-designed, easy to use. I mean, what more could you ask for?
I love it. And you know what it makes you wonder? What did James from Brisbane use his CCL1s for?
Right.
Was it that overflowing stationery cupboard that he mentioned?
Could be.
Or maybe it was for, like, important documents?
Possibly, yeah.
Who knows? The
Yeah.
possibilities are endless. Whatever your security needs, the CCL1 just might be that simple, reliable solution that you've been looking for.